Good morning, shalom, uvracha, peace and blessings. Here we got the end of the speech that the Rebbe gave in 1991. And it's talking about how it is, the dates, how to learn from the dates of this month. When the 10th day of Tammuz falls out on the 7th day of the week. Remember, that's what we've been learning the whole week. And that's the way it is this year. The 10th day of the month of Tammuz, which is the 4th month of the Jewish year. First month is Nisan. And then there's Iyar, and then there's Sivan, and then there's Tammuz. This is the 10th month of 10th day of the month of Tammuz, and it falls on the 7th day of the week. So the Rebbe said 7 is the number that was determined by God. It says in the written Torah that God created the world in 7 days, and in the oral Torah it says that God created the world with 10 utterances. So 7 days, that's what God does. 10 utterances, that is on the oral Torah, that's our work. That's what we do. So Rebbe is saying that we are put into the world in order to bring completion to the 7 days of creation. And that's what it finds on Shabbos. Remember we said that? So a person always must look at these two things. First of all, to be in the world, and to also to improve the world. To do something new in the world. Make the world better, more godly. You look at the world and you see how the world is, like, for instance, the world now is really in a very tumultuous state, where all values are being defied and questioned, and defiled. Values of home, values of life, values of what's good, what's bad. Everything is upside down. And we have to, first of all, realize what the situation is, do our best not to fall, not to be caught up in this decadence and confusion, but also to do the impossible, to actually change the world, to be good examples, and of course we have help from God in everything we do, especially if we do what God wants. So that'll help us. And that, says the Rebbe, will bring to what's going to be next week. Next Shabbat is the 17th day of Tammuz, which is a terrible fast day, commemorating the beginning of the destruction of the temple, and also the breaking of the tablets, most of the tablets. And because this year it falls out on Shabbat, and also when the Rebbe was speaking on that year, it shows that there is a possibility that the fasts will be transformed. It says that on those days, the fast days of Tisha B'Av and the rabbinical fast days, that most of them deal with the temple, when they fall on Shabbat, as it says, we must make the Shabbat even happier than the usual, to show that we're not even affected at all by these holidays, the fasts. So in other words, this year, when the Yud Zayin Tammuz, it will fall on Shabbat, and we won't be fasting. We'll exactly the opposite. We'll be happy and we'll be eating. Okay, so that's what the Rebbe learned, essentially. That's what, in a nutshell, what we learned up to now. Let's just do the last paragraph of the previous. Ubakol inyanim elu, in all of these matters, we have to learn that every single day, a person has to have these two, let's say, movements, two goals in his service of God. and joining them together, whether we're talking about working with your body, whether we're talking about your soul, whether we're talking about revealing, learning the revealed aspects of the Torah, whether we're talking about the hidden aspects of the Torah, whether doing the commandments or the intention of the commandments and the way that you're doing them, everything should be together. In other words, in a normal way and also an above normal way. Okay, now let's get to this we didn't learn. What is actually the message? What are we supposed to actually do? And especially we're right next to the holiday of Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz. That's going to be next Sunday and Monday night. Sunday and Monday night, right? In other words, Monday and Tuesday is going to be the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz. As we talked about this before, in 1927, that was when the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe Yosef Yitzchak Schneerson, was released from communist prison, from certain death in communist prison. He was released totally. He was defied openly the communist regime. And what do you mean openly? He sent out his emissaries to all over Russia to teach children. A lot of them got killed. A lot of them got sent to Siberia. Nobody even knows where they are. And the Rebbe almost joined them. But on Yud Beis and Yud Gimel Tammuz, there was actually the first time a human being actually openly defied. He had a whole network of teaching. There were other Jews that also privately, in their own private lives, even not Hasidic Chabad, in their own private lives, they defied Stalin. But it was very, very rare. And also nobody knows who they were, except perhaps their families do, because it was all in secret. You had to keep, and the Chabad Hasidim, they it was also in secret, but there was hundreds of them. Who knows, maybe thousands that were teaching children all over Russia and supplying circumcision for those who wanted, and for women to make mikvahs and kosher food for those ritual slaughterers. The people had kosher food to eat, kosher meat, kosher chickens. I mean, mostly you couldn't slaughter a cow. I don't know, maybe there was some way that they got around it, but the situation in Russia was just indescribably bad. That book, 1984, that was exactly what happened over there in Russia. Communism that was supposed to free everyone. It was such a wonderful ideology that's now sweeping across the world again. It's just totally evil. It's so promising and so appealing intellectually and emotionally, especially emotionally. But it's just totally evil, and it doesn't work. It just didn't work. And no one will admit it. Just like Stalin was killing millions of people, and no one would admit it. No one would hate him. Stalin was killing people's parents, and the people, they still loved Stalin, father. And in this situation, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he openly defied Stalin by teaching Torah to children. It was an ideology that was not communism, and in fact, it was diametrically opposed to communism. I mean, in one way, communism worked. Everybody's supposed to be equal, so everybody was equally poor. In that way, I guess it worked. Yud Beis. Actually, when we were right before the holiday of the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz, when the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe in 1927, was released from Stalin's prisons and recently released from exile, released from death sentence, Shabon, Nitvosef, Hosafa Chidush, B'Hafatzas Yadut. Then when the Rebbe got out, it says, freed all of the Jews. Now nothing can stop Judaism anymore, except for the Jews themselves. To spread out Judaism, Torah, and spreading out the teachings of Chassidut, learning about God outward. So if so, says the Rebbe, what should we actually do? I would like to propose, Leish Lahatzia, Nosaf al Shiurim Akavuim, in addition to the regular learning pattern, that is order of learning you have every day, Sheish L'Kol Echad, that everybody has. But every Jew should have certain things that he learns every day And that even if it's just Psalms, every day you say one Psalm, you say the day of Psalms, or should have a Mishnah you learned every day, or at least do Rashi with Chumash with Rashi. As Yosifu B'Kol Yom, every Jew should add on every day, each person according to his ability, a special learning about in the add on something in Nigla the Torah. Let's say another law in the Shulchan Aruch, another Mishnah, another page of the Gemara, another line of the Gemara. The Inyan Penimis of Torah, and also add on something in the inside of the Torah. I'll call upon him at least one thing liyuna b'kol echad mehem, at least to look into and investigate each and every one of them. Ubamiyuchad, and especially Inyan shekolel et achibur v'nigla v'chasidus b'yachad. Especially if you can do something that unites the inside of the Torah and the outside of the Torah together. What's that mean? Hein a pirush, a pashat b'zeh, whether we're talking about both of them together. Al pi nigla b'yachad ima biur b'zeh, b'pinim et Torah. Whether we're talking about learning, let's say, for instance, you learn a sentence in the Torah, and then you learn an inner explanation. We sort of do that every day, right? We have a class in Chumash, and usually every day we bring the Kli Yakar, or the Ramban, or the Or HaChaim, that they talk about, they bring ideals from mystical Judaism into the simple explanation of the Torah. Right, like especially this week's Torah portion, that the blessings of Bilam are really referring to Mashiach and the different levels of Mashiach and how it will be. Remember, we learned the whole Or HaChaim about that. Especially how we find in the teachings of the Rebbes that were printed now in the last, when we learned the Sichas of the Rebbe, like we're learning right now, usually takes some idea in the Torah and he explains it according to soul ideas, right? Spiritual, mystical ideas, but it brings it home. That's the idea of Hasidut Chabad, especially accomplished by the Rebbe's speeches that we learn every day. And similarly, Yosifo B'Kiyum mitzvahs. So you should, so what's the Rebbe saying? Add. Should add on to what you do. Add on what you do. If you're a person that's able to, the more you add, the better. Take another topic, make another partner, learning partner, learn something new in the Talmud and law, halacha, in Chassidut, Kabbalah. Learn together. Learn something new. Add. Similarly, you should also add on in doing the commandments. The commandments should be specially the hidur. How do you say? To do it in a special way. Take an example. The Rebbe said you should check your tefillin regularly, once every 2 years, once every year. Also, when you put on the tefillin, the edges should be sharp. It should be clear. The straps especially should be totally black. Right? You should always be careful to put the tefillin exactly on the right place on your head. And of course, when you're in tefillin, you shouldn't think the extraneous things. And also learning more about the intention of the commandments. Just taking the example, tefillin is supposed to be on the head, is to tie your thoughts to God. On your arm is to tie your heart to God. L'hadgish, to stress, especially with the doing of the commandments, that there should be the intention of the commandments. The more the intention, the better. Even though, like we said before, all you have to have is the intention is that this comes from God, and that's in general. But there's also an individual, specific intention for every single commandment. How tzitzit are different from mezuzah, and how mezuzah is different from charity, and how charity is different from tefillin, and tefillin is different from tefillah. And every commandment has its own deep inner uniqueness, which is explained according to Chassidut and Kabbalah. Not too many people can understand Kabbalah or can't understand it properly, but Chassidut certainly explains it. Kol chad lafum shirid Chassidut, the teachings of Chabad. Agam also became mitzvahs in doing the commandments. that you should do the commandments lifnim mishurot adin, more exact than is required. More exact than is required. You make kiddush on Shabbos, make it on wine, right? Make it on wine. You can make it on the grape juice, and if you can't, so you add a little bit of wine to the grape juice. Whatever, everything that you do when you should understand the meaning of every word, simple meaning of every word when you pray, and all the times you say kiddush. Understand each and every word, but add on something. Kolel and miyuchad, especially the mitzvah tzedakah. A person could say, listen, I don't have time to do all this. I heard from a very honorable person that time is will. If you want to do something, all of a sudden you'll find you have time. If you don't, then you don't have time. There's a saying they say, it's not a joke, but it's a humorous statement, that if you want anything to be done, ask someone who's already busy. Because a person who's not busy, he doesn't have time. Doesn't have time. Kol elam yuchad, especially the charity. We're talking about adding on learning Torah, adding on doing the commandments, adding on in the quantity and the quality, and especially in the quantity and the quality of charity, giving charity. Hagam, even though the charity lo nogia klal kavanat noten, even though that in charity it doesn't make any difference what your intention is. The main thing is that you give. Aval hari you do, but no, the commandments are more complete when you do them the savor panim yofel. For instance, when you give charity with a smiling face, with a pleasant way, right? Not like if the person is like, plucking feathers from a chicken, a live chicken. The chicken says squawking. The same thing as you giving charity. It's like somebody is pulling your hairs out, right? It's not. You should give with a pleasant face, giving charity. Charity is very, very important. Especially charity is the antidote to communism. Communism says that everybody will be equally. The government will force everyone, the rich people, to give their money away. Stealing. Simply thievery. What's the antidote? What about how there really is this inequality of the proletariat and etc. So what's the answer? The answer is charity. There's supposed to be people that are rich, and there's supposed to be people that are poor, and the rich people are supposed to worry about the poor people. That's what the solution of Judaism. God wants you to be rich. He wants you to be a millionaire. He wants you to be a billionaire. And the purpose of your money is so that you can get even something greater than having money, and that is giving money away. By means of that, there'll be love. If you're forced you're forced, so there's no love. There's no humanness. The government will be human for you. With that philosophy, as Stalin killed about 50 million people, 20 million people, 30, nobody even knows. I saw one place that said 50 million. Therefore, you should actually give in quantity more money, but neshama, and also in quality of giving the charity, that it should be with love. This person is the same thing as you. If God wanted to, he could make you one instant that you're the poor person, and this other guy, he's the rich person. The reason rich people are rich is because God wants them to be, not because of their talents and their ability. Alder is similar with charity in speech. What does it mean? Giving good advice to another person, saying a good word to someone else. Also charity in thought, thinking good thoughts about others. This is a very powerful thing. This is a very, very powerful thing. To think good thoughts about other people. We have no idea how powerful thought is. Thought. To think good thoughts about other people can be a very powerful thing. And it also makes you a positive person. In addition to actually doing this, it'll also have an effect on other people. That the people will, like reflecting waters, they'll see that you always have good words on your mouth, and you always have a positive attitude, and it's contagious. Other people will also start to add on doing Torah and add on doing the commandments. And regarding to the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz itself, the day of the freeing, the day of the freedom of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, big holiday. Yasu gam et hakavana et hachanos hamatimos l'seder hitvadut. They should have a hitvadut together with the Chag HaGeula, with the holiday of redemption. B'kol makom b'makom b'makom hamatim l'fi tanai makom. You should try to make Hasidic gatherings on the 12th of Tammuz, on the 13th of Tammuz, on both of the days, or even on the days after that, and especially on the Shabbat. And this Shabbat, not this coming Shabbat, but the Shabbat after that is going to be a feasting day. It's a fast day, for 17th, but we won't be fasting. So we should make a Farbringen. The Farbringen Kama v'Kama Yisrael mitasfim. Many Jews will gather together. Ish et re'eu yazru. Each person will help his fellow man. Ve'achiv yomar chazak. And the brothers will say, strengthen yourselves, be powerful, be positive words of a Kabbalah's achlatos, and you should also take good resolutions. And adding on in Judaism, and there's these get-togethers, what's called Hasidic Farbringens, you should add on to do more good. Torah, mitzvot. Because the purpose of these getting-togethers is not just, being friendly and being nice, which is also an amazing thing. But in addition, it should come out that people make decisions to do more good, say more good, think more good, learn more Torah, do more commandments. So befront, and especially spreading out Judaism and spreading out Hasidut outwards. Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Should take over miyad mamish, that immediately, even before the Shabbat. Here the Rebbe is speaking on Shabbat. So even before the 12th and the 13th of Tammuz, and how much more so lifnei hayom the Shiva Asar b'Tammuz, how much more so before the fast day that has been transformed to a feasting day on Shabbat, because it falls on Shabbos. Tavo, the redemption should already come. I mean, we've been waiting for thousands of years for this redemption to come, and it hasn't come. So if it comes right now, it's really late. It should be that before what's called between the tragedies. What's between the tragedies? This is called Bein HaMetzorim, between the tragedies, or between the. And this comes from a sentence in in Lamentations. Bein HaMetzorim is the 3 weeks which begin with Yud Zayin Tammuz. That's when the enemy breached the walls. And Tisha B'Av, which comes 3 weeks later, that's when the temple was actually destroyed. And those 3 weeks are 3 weeks of mourning. They don't make weddings in those times. Yehi Yapchu Yomim Elu, that these days should be transformed to joy and happiness, L'moadim Tovim, and to holidays. Begula Mitit Veshlema, and the true redemption by means of the Mashiach. Tihiyah B'Pashtos Bias Mashiach, that the Mashiach should actually come. B'His Pashtos of Mashiach, and that the Mashiach should actually spread out. We're going to learn a Sikha and learn how everybody is the Mashiach. We'll see. There'll be a person, though, one human being, a Melech, a king. Mebeit David, this is the language of the Rambam, Maimonides. There will be a king which will come from the house of King David, Hoga B'Torah, learning Torah and doing commandments like David, be a kof, and he will force, convince, pull all the Jewish people to go in the ways of the Torah and the commandments, and to strengthen Judaism, and he will fight the battles of God. And he will succeed. And he'll build the Holy Temple in his place. And he'll gather all the Jews together. Like the Rambam says, right at the end of his massive work. Look it up, Laws of Kings, right in the end. You can look it up in chapter 11, Laws of Kings. You can Google it. Calls that all this is made in a way of Rambam, Rabbi Moses ben Maimon, Rabbi Moses, the son of Maimon, but this is also the initials of Rabot Moftai Be'eretz Ravot Moftai Be'eretz Mitzrayim, increasing the miracles in the land of Egypt. She'od biyotenu b'Mitzrayim, even though we're in exile now in Egypt, Mitgalim will be revealed Ravot Moftai, many miracles. V'naseh Ravot Moftai, there will actually be more miracles. So kasher sholim, that if you ask a Jew, Mahaya Mofet Acharon, what was the last miracle you saw? He'll say, what are you talking about, the last one? There's a lot of miracles. You owed Ravot, and there will be a lot of miracles. What do you mean the last one? That wasn't the last one. There's going to be miracles, incredible miracles. Ravot, language of the Torah, doing more and more Abli Agabala. I think one big miracle that's happening now is that, there's a lot of anti-Semitism in the world. But in fact, I don't know if it's any less the anti-Semitism than it was in Nazi Germany. The fact is on the campuses and the BDS and all this stuff. So they clothe it in all sorts of, leftism. It's not the same thing. But especially on the college campuses where the Jewish students over there, they're like the first ones to become communists and to become, leftist and become atheists and all these, free thinkers and free doers and free speakers. And all of a sudden there's opening up in the campuses, all this anti-Semitism. So the Jews are not being accepted. They're being pushed away from all these bizarre anti-human movements that are going on now. Anti-life. So little by little, maybe it's shaking up the Jews, and God forbid that nothing bad should happen to them actually, but it's shaking them up a little bit to saying, what is going on? Why do these people exactly hate the Jews? What do we do? What's wrong? Oh, we don't hate the Jews, we just hate the Israelis. Well, what did the Israelis do? Oh, they're oppressing. I mean, you have like any sort of real proof of this is just, who are they oppressing? All the Arabs in the world, they want to come to Israel. If you open up the borders, the place will be packed, right, with Arabs. Right, they're just they're all a bunch of masochists. They don't want to suffer. Come to Israel, you see that the Arabs have it better here than any country in the world. The average. What's the big problem? So the problem is that this thing makes no sense, and it's there only to hopefully wake the Jews up and realize that these people are not against Israel because they're Israelis, because they're Jews. And that's the whole reason, and it'll wake people up to their true identity, because we can't run from it until take it for the Geula Mitit. Immediately there will be the true redemption of the Jews and the whole world. Like it says, just like the going out of Egypt, God said, I will show you miracles. Miracles even that'll make what happened going out of Egypt normal. There'll be miracles even in comparison to the miracles of going out of Egypt, whether in quality, beniflot, and also in quantity, there'll be miracles. They kitzu Rabbani Shochmar, Afar, and they will wake up all of the great rabbis that are now dead. We see it in the first blessing of the second blessing of Shemon Esrei, that God raises the dead. It's one of the 13 principles of faith. The Jewish people really don't die. They're just resting under the ground. How this is, I have absolutely no idea, but it's going to be. Ubali Agula B'tocham Barosham, and the previous Rebbe, he'll be the head, the first one. The Rebbe once said that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, he's the Moshiach. And he said, but I mean, how can you say that? It says that Moshiach is supposed to come before the raising of the dead, and the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe is already dead. So he said that there's going to be the raising of the dead, and that some people are going to raise before others, and Moshiach will be one of them. And this is supported by a lot of places. A lot of places. The Gemara says that the Mashiach can come from the dead, and there's a whole big list. In any case, the previous Rebbe and all the other great rabbis will stand up, b'yachad kol bnei Yisrael, with all the Jews together, neshamos brios, healthy bodies and healthy souls and healthy bodies. Binorenu b'skinenu, our youth, our elders, b'neinu b'notenu, our sons, our daughters, tasim emana neshamaya, they will fly with the clouds of glory to the land of Israel. Could it be? And they'll have to use clouds of glory because you can't get planes nowadays. All the planes are all stalled out on the thing. So I guess we'll have no choice but to have clouds of glory. And when there are clouds of glory, there won't be all these stop-ups and delays. And even though the fact is this is probably the biggest delay in flight delay that's ever been in the history of the world, right? This is flight of the Jewish people flying on clouds to Israel. The flight has been delayed 2,000 years. That's a pretty big delay. Okay, well, we'll get what they call pitzuim. You get, what is it, reparations for it. Jerusalem, Ira Kodesh, from the boss, from the owner of the company, right? From God. He'll give us reparations. Lahara Kodesh, the Jewish people will come to the land, the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, the holy city, to the holy mountain, to the holy house, Beit HaMikdash, Ashlishi, Mikdash Hashem Konanei Yadecha. All the Jewish people will be together in the Holy Land. Okay, let us do now a sicha. I thought that would end a little earlier than it did, but let's go. Let's see how much we can get done of this.